The Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwarube, has issued a strong warning to members of Operation Dudula. Any attempt to disrupt school operations will be met with the full force of the law. This follows a campaign launched by Operation Dudula in Soweto, where members reportedly delivered notices to several schools demanding that undocumented children of foreign nationals not be enrolled for the 2026 academic year. The group has threatened disruptive action if their demands are ignored, escalating their anti-immigrant stance from healthcare facilities to the education sector. The Department of Basic Education has condemned these actions, reaffirming its commitment to inclusive education and constitutional rights. But the campaign has sparked debate about school placements, resource strain, and the rights of undocumented learners. So to unpack all of those developments and the nuances of it, I'm joined in studio by Terrence, Khala, who is Acting Director of Communication and Research at the Department of Basic Education. And online, I'm joined by Professor Metcalfe, education expert, who is talking to us as well. And I'll be joined by Tami Madondo from the Dudula Media House. In fact, Tami, let me start with you. Just lay out for us what your position is in relation to access to education for children of foreign nationals, documented very clearly and undocumented. If you can state that as clearly as you can, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Siviwe. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us. Operation Dudula, it's a political party registered and in accordance with South African electoral laws and vested powers to enforce the country's laws in terms of Section 1 and Section 42 of the Criminal Procedure Act of 51, Procedure Act 51 of 1977. Now, Operation Dudula Any, it's the movement, one, that puts South Africans first. But two, the origins of Operation Dudula emanates from the narrative that says we need to enforce the law. South Africa is a constitutional country. It's got its laws, and it's guided by the Constitution and all the other legislative frameworks, including your Immigration Act. Now, Operation Dudula advocates for these laws to be enforced. Anything and everything that we touch, it is guided by the law. It is very difficult for me to comprehend and understand why do we have all of these arguments. But one can understand that in a country where it's governed
Mr. Madondo, my apologies, Mr. Madondo. I appreciate the background that you are giving me, but I asked you a direct question so that there's no misunderstanding, because often people are accused of misunderstanding what the actual position is. So the question that I asked directly was, what is your position in relation to the enrollment of children of foreign nationals, stated clearly as it relates to foreign nationals who are documented on the one hand, as well as clearly as you can in relation to the children of foreign nationals who are not documented? So I appreciate the background, but please address the question directly, please.
Let me help you. Maybe the question should be, why do we have illegal foreigners, children in the country? That's where it starts. In terms of the Immigration Act, it is very amazing that we jumped and legalize these people when they are in the country. Where it actually starts, it starts by the point of entry. And Section 32 says...
Mr. Madondo? Mr. Madondo, we seem to be losing you on the line there. Let me bring in my two other guests. Terrence is in studio. So Terrence, you heard a bit of what was being said there, and we will pick up with Mr. Madondo the conversation. What is the position, the actual position from the Department of Basic Education? Are you going to be broking any disruption or disturbance, protests and the likes by groupings such as Operation Dudula in and around schools?
Tulasizo, thank you for the opportunity, and let me greet the fellow panel members as well. Tulasizo, I mean, we depart from a point of upholding the law. First and foremost, we work from the basis of the Basic Education the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, which has been amended as of 2024. And it does stipulate that we have to allow learners of school-going age, it is compulsory that they go to school, as well as the aspect of us not looking into the element of their papers, regardless of whether they have documents or not. A learner of school-going age, a child of school-going age in the confines of South Africa is allowed to have access to schools. So that does obviously look at the various elements around admissions and the likes, and provinces do have their processes, but the departure point for us is to first and foremost uphold the law and make sure that we protect the rights of every single child to be able to gain access to a quality education.
Yeah. Professor Metcalfe, please come in here. What's your understanding of the lay of the land as far as the regulation and the constitutional prescripts that are at play in as far as this issue is concerned? On the one hand, you have a grouping like Dudula, as Mr. Matondo was making the point that they want to see the enforcement of our country's laws, including laws around migration, immigration, and the likes. On the other hand, they also pledge allegiance and fidelity to the Constitution. How do the two sit side by side as it relates to this question?
Good afternoon to Siviwe and Terrence and Tabi. I think that what we have is adequate laws and adequate guidance, and what we need is wisdom to be able to balance issues such as the right to protest, as well as the obligation we all have to defend the law. So what exists in law is that both Bella and then the Bella regulations are very specific in relation to what documentation is required. So it is the responsibility of the department to admit learners and to look at the documentation and to uphold the law. And it's the responsibility of the principal to act in the place of the department. What I think is critical is that should there be any dissatisfaction with the existing law, it cannot be that we ask officials to ignore the law. It cannot be that we in any way disrupt the lives of children and scare children. If we think the existing laws are not adequate, then we need to use the legal processes to debate, to contest that law. But it's critical that our schools start with all of the work that schools have to do to get going at the beginning of the year. And we shouldn't be disrupting schools, because Bella also makes that absolutely clear, that you cannot disrupt schooling. So what it requires is debate and discussion about the adequacy of the laws adopted by Parliament, if anyone is unhappy with them.
Mr. Matondo, let me bring you back in. I believe we have you back on the line. Pick up where you left off. You were clarifying what your position is in relation to the access to public schooling by children of foreign nationals, either documented or undocumented, so that we all move from the same basis of understanding.
Thank you very much, Prof. And I unfortunately, sorry about what happened, but unfortunately, I'm not too sure the lady that was just talking now, and I think she was amplifying what the law, what should everybody in the country be doing in relation to the law. The Act makes, in relation to, with regards to Operation Dudula delivering the letters in the schools, the letters that are guided by the Immigration Act and the Constitution in terms of the Bella Act. We emphasize the position and the people of this country to say that foreign learners, there is a criteria that needs to be followed, which is being specified by the very same Basic Condition Amendment Act 32 of 2024, which was introduced on the 13th of September 2024. Now, the criteria spells as it needs to have. Now, it is unfortunate that we are in this position because there is no political will. We don't have the government which wants to assist the citizens of this country in terms of implementation of all of these laws. And the government is in violation of Section 95 of the Constitution that speaks to the public administration of the government facilities and the government institutions, how they need to be administered. All of these laws, Tulasizo, would not be where we are today if there was a political will to fix and direct.
Let me ask it slightly differently, Mr. Matondo. Have you delivered notices to schools in Soweto in which you demand that children of foreign nationals not be enrolled for 2026? Have you, as a matter of fact, done that?
Yes, exactly. We've done that in terms of amplifying the law. We've just reminded the principal that they are in violation of the Constitution, they are in violation of the Immigration Act,
right.
They are in violation of the Dudula Act as well, in terms of the criteria that has been set out.
All right. Terrence, back to you.
Certainly.
You heard there, finally got the answer that they've made this demand. What's your sense of the propriety of a demand like that being made at school level?
It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. I think obviously we, as the basic education sector, we always want to defend learners' rights to be able to gain access to education. And I think I began the interview by relaying back to what the Bella Act says. And perhaps maybe we need to have a little bit of a discussion about the interpretation of what that means. But within that act, it does state that, yes, where documentation is available, that documentation is required. But where a child does not have documentation, they will not be denied access to schooling off the back of that. So I think with what Mr. Matondo is indicating, the letters that they've sent to schools, I mean, the minister has written to the acting minister of police, of SABC, to indicate that schools obviously will require some visible policing and that this is a matter that the Department of Basic Education is concerned about. We want to make sure that schools are protected. We want to make sure that every learner's right to access schooling is protected, and particularly in a time like this, Tulasizo, as we're about 24 days away from the National Senior Certificate examinations. These are not the kind of instances that we want around our schools. We need our schools to be protected, and they need to be environments where learning and teaching can prevail with ease. Tulasizo.
So what should school principals, school admin staff and the likes be doing in response to these letters being issued by Operation Dudula? From your vantage point,
Sure.
What's your message to them?
No, I mean, the message would be that schools are linked with police stations. We do have a school safety protocol, one that was reignited as well between the minister and the former minister of police. So we rely on that. Those are pieces of legislation that guide us and that protect schools. So schools can utilize the law and utilize the regulations that have been put in place, the linkages that we have with police stations, and this amplified request from the minister for schools to be protected by the SABC with more visible policing.
Professor Mary Metcalfe, over and above what the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act provides for, is this an area that is settled in law and in relation to the right to basic education as outlined in our Constitution?
Well, the Bella regulations are absolutely specific, and I was delighted to hear Tabi say that they want to uphold the law. The principal's job is to, in fact, to enact the regulations. So the Bella regulations are clear that there is a right to the admission of undocumented learners, regardless of nationality and immigration status. And the principal is obliged to follow that law. He is obliged to, or she is obliged to follow the regulations. It is not fair to put pressure on the principals to say, we're asking you to not follow the regulations. Your question said, is there legal precedent? I'm sorry, I should have checked this before this discussion, but I believe that Section 27 and other organizations actually have pursued a legal case and there's a legal judgment which also informs this regulation. The courts have said it is required that we admit undocumented learners.
Yeah. Mr. Madondo, just back to you then. From the conversation we are having, it would seem the overall thrust of my other guests' contributions is that while you have a right to be protesting the issues that you are protesting around migration, the lack of control around migration, you are knocking at the wrong door, barking up the wrong tree by putting pressure on school principals. What do you say to that?
Thank you very much. Number one, we are not barking at the wrong dog because Operation Dudula has engaged the Department of Education. We've actually conducted marches to deliver memorandums into the department. The department itself has never gotten back to Operation Dudula, to engage Operation Dudula. So this thing has systematically has been gradually been coming to the schools because we're not getting a response from the department. Because we've got a government that does not really care. And I think your speakers, they are re-emphasizing the fact that there is a criteria, there is a law that needs to be followed. However, everybody else does not follow these laws. We are advocating and emphasizing on the issue of making sure that laws of the countries are upheld. The Constitution, the Immigration Act, and all other legislative laws that govern this country. South Africa is a constitutional country. All the laws need to be followed by everyone. But let me just also say,
sorry, Mr. Madondo, let me come in there. Why are you not in court litigating on this matter where much of the precedent on what happens in actual fact has been set in various cases that talk to this issue that you are raising now of access to education by children of foreign nationals, whether documented or undocumented? A number of cases have been heard. Example, Center for Child Law versus Minister of Basic Education decided. So why are you not in those quarters as opposed to putting pressure in this way in a manner that you are doing against school principals?
So let's see. I think, let me say it maybe one more time, that this government did not listen. We've seen how cases have been strangled. We've seen how cases have been twisted. We are actually at the point where the document itself that was delivered at the schools was drafted by the legal department of Operation Dudula. And we have advised our legal team, I think, to now take many other matters, including this one, to the ICC, because it looks like we'll never be listening in South Africa. So yes, there is a legal pursuit that we are engaging our legal team to take this matter further.
What happens, lastly to you, Mr. Madondo, what happens if the school principals say the guidance from the Department of Basic Education is we should keep doing our jobs, and if there are children who are children of foreign nationals, whether documented or not, we have a responsibility to continue to educate them? What happens if that is the stance taken by the majority of school principals?
Plus, you will remember that the media has misplaced the narrative, the media has misplaced the understanding and what Operation Dudula stands for. We always operate within the ambit of the law. So what will therefore means we're going to obviously have to challenge it legally. We're going to have to take the legal route because everything and anything that is happening within the country, there is a violation of all of these laws, including Section 42 of Immigration Act. These people are abating and they are assisting even the school principals would have to challenge through the law because they are abating criminals.
All right.
As we call them. They are assisting criminals, and that's against the law in terms of Section 42.
All right. Terrence, parting shot from you. Are you comforted that there'll be no disruption in this critical period that you pointed to as we approach the exam season? But also importantly, the start of the year is always difficult, isn't it? Especially in provinces like Gauteng, where space is a crunch. And just the whole enrollment process is mired in difficulty at the start of the year. Can parents who happen to be foreign nationals rest easy knowing that there will be no added layer of uncertainty at the start of the year brought about by this, these issues being raised by Operation Dudula?
You're correct. I think inward migration is something that affects a large amount of provinces, particularly Gauteng, the Western Cape and KZN. But I think what's important for principals to know is that the law does back them. What's important for parents to note is that schools have already done their admission processes, but late admissions will exist, and the law will always back them. And we always encourage our schools to stick to the previews of the law and to stick to the policies that we've put in place to make sure that we can open this system and access to learners that really, in essence, will require some or other form of schooling. So it is really important for us to stick to the law, number one, but also to make sure that we support the ambitions of every child to be able to gain a quality education and support the sector. The basic education sector is one that is largely based on collaboration, and it's a sector that it really is a societal aspect that is very strong within the basic education sector. So we do call on our sister departments as well to continue to support us in this, and we make sure that obviously schooling is something that can begin in earnest at the beginning of the year.
Professor Mary Metcalfe, parting shot to you, and perhaps let me frame it this way. Are there ethical considerations? No, in fact, actually go ahead. I think you had a thought in mind. Let me not get in the way. Yes.
Yeah. I'm gratified that Operation Dudula is insistent that they follow the law, because there's 2 points in law that all concerned parents need to be aware of. The law is unequivocal, and I'm quoting here: "The right to a basic education extends to everyone within the boundaries of South Africa, regardless of their nationality and immigration status. Learners without valid documentation are equally entitled to admission of public schools, and this is the steps that they must take." The other piece of law in Bella says that it is an offence in respect of any party to interrupt or disrupt or hinder an official education principal or any kind of official as they work. So what we need to know is that there are principles and ethics and our behavior, our relationship and our support of children that underlie the law. But that's what the law says. And any principal who feels anxious needs to know their job is to uphold the law, and that education departments and the ministry and the provincial MECs will be ensuring that principals follow the law. Thank you.
All right, I've got to thank all of you for joining me this afternoon. That's Professor Mary Metcalfe, education expert, as well as Terrence Khala, the acting director of communication in the Department of Basic Education in the Republic. And then we were also joined, of course, by Tami Madondo from Dudula Media House.